Today we're going to be taking a look at a few of the most pocket carry friendly flashlights on the market. So if you're looking for something to add to your everyday carry that's going to give you a lot of lighting capability in a compact form, one of these three lights should definitely meet your needs. And the three lights we're going to be looking at in this video are the Nitecore EDC27, which was just recently released from Nitecore a few weeks ago. And this has been an incredibly tough light to get my hands on because it sells out really quickly. The next one is the Olight Arkfeld, which has been out for a few months and quickly become one of Olight's most popular models. And they recently released some new body colors. And finally, the Streamlight Wedge, which was one of the first flat style EDC lights to be released about 2 years ago and is still incredibly popular and has really been the only light like it up until recently. Before we dive in and take a more in-depth look at these lights and check out their features and beam shots, I want to give you guys a quick size comparison here between these three flat lights and a more traditional 18650 size flashlight. And as you can see, these three flat lights have a very similar footprint and they are much thinner compared to the 18650 light, so they are going to be significantly less noticeable and more comfortable to pocket carry. But the main trade-off here, and one of the biggest downsides, is that all three of these lights have built-in batteries. So you're not going to be able to swap in and out batteries like you would with a regular 18650 light. Alright, so let's start off with the Nitecore EDC27, and the body is made from stainless steel, and it has a PVD titanium coating with a fine frosted matte finish. And on the side, there's some crisscross style knurling, which gives you some added grip. And there's also a very heavy-duty pocket clip on the back. It also has a dual-stage, dual tail switch design, and a full press on the small switch will turn the light on and off, and a half press will cycle through 4 different primary output modes. The other larger flat switch will bring you to turbo with a half press and strobe with a full press, but it will require you to keep pressing down to keep either of these modes turned on. One of the most interesting features on this light is the OLED display, and this is something that we've seen on a few different Nitecore models, but it lets you know some interesting data like the current output level and the remaining runtime on that mode, which eliminates all of the guesswork, and this is an excellent feature if you're concerned about battery life management. The EDC27 has onboard USB-C charging and a built-in 1700 mAh lithium-ion battery. It also has TIR optics, which produce a very soft and evenly diffused beam pattern, and 2 luminous SST40 emitters, and in a few minutes we're going to be diving in and taking a look at some beam shots. Next up, we've got the Olight Arkfeld, and this light is about an inch shorter and slightly more narrow compared to the Nitecore light, and this is the pinwheel gunmetal gray version, but there are about 6 other colors available to choose from at the moment, and it also has a nice sturdy pocket clip on the back. The selector switch gives you the option to switch between a green laser, which is a really practical feature, and I'm glad to see it on this model, and I hope to see it on some more flashlights in the future, and the primary emitter, and the button in the center will turn the laser on, or the LED, depending on which mode is selected, and you can also navigate through 5 different primary output modes plus a strobe. You can charge the light magnetically with one of Olight's proprietary charging cables, and the battery is a 1060 mAh lithium-ion cell. This light also has TIR optics and a high-performance primary emitter, and this is the cool white version, but you can also pick it up in neutral white, and on the other side we've got a class 1 green laser emitter. Finally, we've got the Streamlight Wedge, and size-wise it comes in right in the middle between the 2 previous lights. The body is made from anodized aluminum, and this version is coyote, but you can also pick it up in black, and it also has a removable pocket clip. There's a single switch with an off position, a constant mode, and a turbo mode, which needs to be held in the on position, so there are far less modes here compared to the other lights. There's a USB-C port on the tail with a 1500 mAh lithium polymer battery, and it has an aluminum reflector, and unfortunately I was not able to track down what kind of emitter it has. Now we're going to dive in and take a look at some beam shots, and we'll start off with the Nitecore EDC27, which has a max output of 3000 lumens, a peak intensity of 12,200 candela, and a max throw distance of 220 meters. All three of these lights have relatively wide beam angles, so they're going to be well suited for walking, but this one is more narrow than the others, but it's going to give you the best throwing distance. We're going to do a quick thermal test to see how high it gets from running turbo, and runtime on turbo was a little over 10 seconds before dropping down to around 1000 lumens, and during that time from about 50 degrees to around 72 degrees, which is understandable given the high output. You can keep resetting turbo, and I was able to bring the light to an uncomfortably high range of 128 degrees, which is definitely not safe for this light, and you should not try this at home. Next up, we've got the Olight Arkfeld, and this one has a max output of 1000 lumens, a peak intensity of 2560 candela, and a max throw distance of 101 meters. Again, we've got a wide beam angle here, and this is going to be a good choice for those of you looking to get your hands on a cooler light, and it will ramp down slowly to about 300 lumens over the duration of 4 minutes. The Arkfeld did a great job on the thermal test and only went up from about 50 to 53 degrees. Here's a quick look at the laser emitter with the ambient lighting, and this is best utilized in low light conditions and should be visible up to about 150 meters or so. This is a Streamlight Wedge on turbo, which has a max output of 1000 lumens, a peak intensity of 3000 candela, and a max throw distance of 110 meters. It will run on this mode for about 35 seconds, and then it will rapidly ramp down to the 300 lumen mode. The beam angle on the Wedge is ultra wide, so it's going to be great for walking and seeing a lot up close, and it's going to give you a slightly better throw distance compared to the Arkfeld, but nowhere near as good as the Nitecore light. The Wedge got up to about 65 degrees during that time, and at that temperature the heat is slightly hotter than the Arkfeld, but overall it's still barely noticeable. Now we'll take a look at the mid modes, and I think that these provide a nice balance of output and runtime and would probably be one of the most commonly used modes on these lights. And on the Nitecore we've got a 200 lumen mode, and this will run for about 3 hours and 45 minutes, and this seems to be very well adjusted for the task. The Arkfeld has a 300 lumen mode that will run for just over 2 hours before ramping down to 60 lumens, where it can run for an additional 34 minutes. The Wedge has a 300 lumen mode, and it will run for about 3 hours and throw 60 meters. However, it does appear to be running at a slightly higher output, which does seem to be a bit excessive for the situation. Last, we're going to take a look at their lowest output modes, or their moon mode, so you can get an idea of what their max runtimes would look like. Moon mode on the EDC27 is 15 lumens, and you do get a decent runtime here of about 37 hours. But it's a shame that we don't have a true 1 lumen mode like some of the other lights, because the runtime would have been insane given the capacity. The Arkfeld is going to give you maximum runtime performance here with a 1 lumen mode that's capable of running for 8 days, which is quite impressive and nice to see. Thanks for joining me today on this video, and I'd love to hear which light is your favorite down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And if you want to pick up any of these lights, there's links down in the description below.